Hello everyone, welcome to the Academy's webinar, Get Your Business Ready for Disasters, which is being held in partnership with Unilever and is being broadcast from their office in Manila, Philippines. So the webinar is going to be an hour long today. We're really glad you can join us, and we hope that it will be an informative discussion on business continuity planning, or BCP, which you're going to hear a lot of today. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll know exactly what BCP is and why it's so important. So before I introduce the panel, I'm just going to provide you all with a very quick orientation of the platform, just so you know how to interact with us and be a part of the discussion as well. So on your screen, you should see several buttons, and whereabouts on the screen they are will depend on the device you're using, whether you're on a laptop or a mobile phone. But you should have the option of selecting audio settings, which is where you can adjust the volume. You can put in a new piece of hardware such as headphones if you want, but hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear now. Next to the audio settings is the Q&A, and so this is the main functionality that we'll be using today. It's the main way you'll be able to interact with us. So you can pose any questions here, and we'd invite you to do so throughout the webinar whenever something comes to you. Me and my colleagues will be here online and we'll respond to as many questions as we can in writing as they come through. But then the ones that are left, the main questions, will also pose to the panel as part of a dedicated Q&A session that will be held towards the end. So next to the Q&A, there's the chat function. We won't be using this today. We just invite you to pose all your questions using the Q&A function. And then there's raise hand as well, which we won't be using. Don't feel the need to raise your hand, just post a question as soon as it comes to you. So it's as simple as that, really. The platform's quite simple to use. So without further ado, I'm now going to introduce our panel for the day. First of all, we have Ed Sunico, who is the Vice President for Sustainable Business and Communications at Unilever Philippines. We also have Lavin Gonzaga joining us, who is a Sustainable Business Manager at Unilever Philippines as well. We next have Dong Wana, who is the Center Director for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy Philippines, and is also a certified Associate Business Continuity Professional. We then have Arnel Cabell, who owns a private retail store called Cord Minimart, which is in Bacoor, Cavite in the Philippines. And then finally, we have Mel Domingo, who is the Humanitarian Leadership Academy's BCP Manager, and who has led the Unilever and the Academy work on BCP to date. So yes, so I'm going to hand over to Mel now on the panel so that she can actually tell us what BCP is, and also to say a little bit more about the project the Academy and Unilever have been running over the past few months.
Okay. Thank you, Jam, for that important overview of this webinar on Business Continuity Planning, or BCP. Well, first, I would like to greet everyone on behalf of the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. Welcome and thank you for joining this webinar. So today, we will be talking about BCP. What is it, its importance, why we need it, and some steps on how to do it. We will also share the significant partnership between Unilever and the Academy in support of this program. Impact stories and videos from BCP participants will also be featured later. Okay. So just a brief background, the Academy's flagship program was delivered with an overall objective of increasing awareness and appreciation on business continuity management as a disaster risk reduction mechanism to build resilient enterprises. The main partners for this program, we have Save the Children UK, the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation. Of course, we have the training arm, University of the Philippines, Institute for Small-Scale Industries, International Institute for Rural Reconstruction, and Stratland DK. Well, each organization have fulfilled different roles, including coordination, linking strategic partners, recruitment of participants, and of course the design and delivery of the BCP training workshops. Okay. Well, I think as of now, I think it would be interesting to hear from Ed and Lavin, the Unilever engagement and the BCP journey.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. So I think you're probably wondering why and asking why Unilever is basically a home care, personal care foods company is here talking about disaster resiliency. And I think probably to answer that question, let me probably go through some slides that I prepared. Let me start by giving you an idea of the sustainable living plan. That's basically what guides Unilever on the things that we do. If you look at the USLP, or Sustainable Living Plan, it talks about an aspiration that we have to grow the business while reducing our environmental impact, at the same time increasing our positive social impact. Now, a big part of that is a goal on enhancing livelihoods of the people in the communities that we serve. Now, you can argue that a lot of these issues on disaster, on natural hazards, um, impacts on our ability to deliver to that goal of enhancing livelihoods. And I think if we are really going to be serious about the USLP, if we're really going to be serious about enhancing livelihoods, and then we have to be equally serious about the issue on business resiliency, disaster preparedness, disaster resiliency as a program as a whole. Now, talking about disaster resiliency, I think it is very important in a country like the Philippines because, as you know, we are in a hotspot. We are a favorite, a favorite of disasters. We're either number 2 or number 3 in disaster, risk global index. We are visited by as much as 20 typhoons in any given year. So, and then we have actually, if you're going to look at that in the context of the profile of the industry, then you will see some serious issues. We sit in a country that's unique in the sense that if you look at the almost 1 million business enterprises in the country, 99% of them are either small, medium, or micro enterprises. And then of that number, 90% of that are actually micro enterprises. These are really small businesses with less than 10 people, capitalization of no more than $60,000 or 3 million pesos. So we also know that in terms of the calamities that actually impacts their business, we're talking about typhoons, power outages, flooding, and again, you can argue that all 3 of them actually happens all at the same time, most of the time, right?
Yes.
And we know for a fact also that this impacts the livelihoods of a lot of people, a lot of businesses in the Philippines, very small businesses, as a matter of fact. And then it cuts across the entire value chain. So if you look at that context, we talk about the smallest of these enterprises are the ones that really gets affected. And I think any intervention from any company, FMCG, Unilever, all of the companies that takes this seriously can really make a big difference. Now let me share with you an actual experience. And here's an example of Typhoon Haiyan. We call it Typhoon Yolanda in the Philippines. As you know, it's the biggest typhoon that ever hit the country, killing about 6,000 Filipinos during a short period of time. And then if you look at the impact to our business, not just on our people, but everybody in the value chain in that specific territory, talking about our distributors, I'm talking about our agencies working on the ground. We're talking of a significant number of people, more than 500 people affected. And then if you look at the actual sales loss in that very short period of time, we're talking about 270 million pesos, so a little over $5 million. And what's interesting is that if you look at where that loss is actually coming from, it's coming from distributed trade. So distributed trade, these are the small retailers, micro retailers operating in the country. Now, if you look at the impact from the modern trade, hardly any losses really coming from that. And it also reflects in the number of customers. So more than 2,800 customers affected during the time. Really small retailers. Again, very less in terms of the modern trade. So again, supply chain got affected. A lot of trade returns. So what I'm saying is that if you look at all of these numbers, it's a really huge number. It's really big impact, and it's only because we were not able to recover fast enough. So it's like if you look at the numbers, those areas that are hardly hit by the typhoon was able to recover at least more than 10 weeks. And then those that are mildly hit by the typhoon, 3 weeks, right? So definitely there's a business case around disaster resilience. And what's good is that we do have a plan, right? Our plan is captured in three main buckets. We talk about preparedness, relief, and rehabilitation. And the whole agenda is to make sure that we accelerate or expand our impact on these three areas. And we have finally stipulated how we're going to play in each of those areas. Now, I think as a company, a typical, I guess across different companies, they're pretty good in relief and rehabilitation because they have structures in place and they are able to help whenever they need to help. Where we have a gap is on this area of preparedness. And I think that's where HLA and BCP actually will come into play. And if you look at, I was talking about the business case around disaster resiliency. Can you move forward? Yeah, so I'm talking about the business case on disaster resiliency, and definitely it ticks a lot of boxes for us. A lot of the things that we do, is fully aligned on the disaster strategy that I talked about. It also takes a lot of boxes in terms of the partnership guidelines on making sure that it delivers growth, increases our trust, reduces our costs, and also it gives us puts us in a very positive space in terms of our position in the local government, local community where we work. So I hope that gives you a proper background on why we are partnering with HLA on BC. And I think I'll pass it on to my colleague David, who will probably give you a brief idea on how we were able to conduct it on the ground.
Okay, so we've been with HLA for 2 years already. So basically our aim is really to roll out the BCP program for 1,000 MSMEs, half of which will be Unilever partners, including distributors and customer development team members. So what we did, next slide please. Next slide please. Yeah. So what we did was really to concentrate first on the distribution side, because in the Unilever value chain, we have the supply side, we also have the manufacturing side. But for this particular program, we really focused on the distribution side because it's the immediate side of the value chain that's closest to the people that we serve. Next slide, please. So actually, in terms of our main customers, basically, we give importance to the sari-sari stores and the MSMEs and the Unilever superstores. Actually, most of 60% of the business is distributed chain. So our products are really distributed to the customers via these small stores and small businesses.
I think most companies FMCGs are able to capture 20% of the 1 million small mom and pops scattered all over the country. And I think when we were trying to craft the plan on using a BCP on the ground, we said, let's focus on the lead stores, we call superstores in the area, and make sure that they are familiar and aware of BCP, because they will be the stores that will actually teach the smaller stores all over the country. That's the approach that we did when we were designing the BCP on the ground.
So when we partner with HLA, we decided really to conduct first a baseline study. So we partnered with Stratman DK and IIRR And then we targeted 30 MSMEs per area. So for Luzon area, we targeted Cavite and Laguna.
Yes.
For Visayas, Leyte, and Samar. And then for Mindanao, Misamis, Oriental, and Occidental. So what we did was to interview them, got to know their experiences in terms of disasters, and really assess their preparedness and awareness of BCP. And after which we designed a module or a program and then ran it for the next 3 months. Also within that period, Unilever was part of the HLA advisory board, which really aims to create the synergy among the stakeholders that are the partners of HLA. So after the pilot phase and after improving the module, HLA and EDRF rolled out the program to 1,000 MSMEs as mentioned. And this BCP workshop is aiming to target on our MSMEs, including our distributors and the customer development team members of Unilever also. So that the program ran from August 2016 until September of 2017, so for a year. And then the 2-day workshop would really covered on the introduction and importance of BCP, the 10 steps of BCP, and of course, since it's a workshop, they were able to create their own BCP plan for their MSMEs, and it was checked also by HLA after the program in terms of the implementation. Okay, so just to share some the results of the BCP training program for 2016-2017, HLA was able to target the 1,000 MSMEs and 478 of which are Unilever partner MSMEs, and that was conducted in 40 training runs across the Philippines. Next slide, please. And just to share some of the feedback on the program. So as mentioned, it's Unilever's really after business resiliency. So our chairman is also thinks that BCP is also something that our partner MSME should have, and it's really something that would strengthen their business and the communities that they serve. And also some of the feedback from our participants. So we have Leonora Mayo, who's a pharmacist and a business owner. So she was a victim of Typhoon Winnie back in 2004. So her focus now is really to prepare for disasters because according to her, of course, we don't know when disasters will strike. So it's better to be prepared and not be complacent. And then another good story is from Helen Fabros, who owns a small grocery in Italy. So she attended the BCP workshop, and then in that workshop, she was trained on how to prepare for the different types of disasters. And what's unique about her case was that in her province, just a week after conducting the BCP, a strong typhoon hit her area. So because of the learnings from the BCP workshop, Helen really made sure to be able to resume business operations after a day. Because according to her, what she learned from the workshop is that it's her responsibility to her community to give them the access to basic needs and services, because she primarily sells food products. So it's the type of service that she can give to her own community. And I understand we have a lot of sharing more from the participants of BCP. Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Larry. Well, looking back, we would like to emphasize that we have actually conducted 40 batches, 40 runs in 18 months, I think? Yeah, in 18 months. That's 1,000 BCP participants in from 81 provinces in 40 regions across the country. Very, that was, well, in so short a time of peace, we were able to cover that. Again, thank you. Dom, I think now it's your turn now to share the Academy's engagement and the importance of BCP in the country.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. Just a little bit of context, and just to add to what Ed mentioned earlier. Asia is one of the most disaster-prone regions in the world. And for instance, in the latest global report, Climate Index report 2017, 6 countries in Asia were listed among the top 10 countries severely affected by extreme weather events for the past 20 years. And of course, the Philippines is easily among the six in the top 10. And again, as mentioned earlier by Ed, the Philippines is one of the world's most at-risk countries, with typhoons, floods, landslides, volcanic eruptions, droughts, even conflict as among the common occurrences. These hazards bring a lot of disruptions to businesses. Again, Ed mentioned Typhoon Haiyan. When Haiyan hit Eastern Visayas in 2013, thousands of micro, small, and medium enterprises were devastated. And there have been reports that around half of them never recovered. MSMEs are particularly vulnerable because of the lack of investment on disaster risk management. They have limited the financial resources. They have limited access to risk financing or risk insurance. They also have limited access to support services. And when they need capacity building, they can hardly find relevant opportunities for training, for example. And many MSMEs also still tend to ignore the fact that disasters or natural and man-made hazards can impact very negatively on their businesses. The other side of that is they also don't recognize that by simply doing business continuity planning, they can be more prepared for these hazards. So why is it very important to talk about BCP for MSMEs now? Let me quickly show you a video emphasize the need for BCP. So there you go. So if you look at the whole of Asia, again, MSMEs account for 97% of all enterprises in the region, and thus play a key role in the region's economy. In the Philippines, again, as presented by Ed earlier, and as you've seen in the video, there are almost 1 million MSMEs employing about 65% of the Philippine labor force and contributing 36% to the gross domestic product. But again, MSMEs suffer considerable disruption and losses from both natural and human-induced hazards. And many of them, and because many of them are not prepared. A survey conducted by the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center in 2015 reported that only 2 out of 10 MSMEs have business continuity plans. This is unfortunate because a BCP is supposed to help an enterprise to prepare for and recover quickly from a disruption. I think one good development that is worth mentioning is that business continuity management has been included in the recent draft of a bill filed in Congress to amend the existing National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management law in the Philippines. So why would we work with the private sector? As you already have heard from the previous presentations, we have worked with the private sector for this project, particularly Unilever, because we understand that large companies like Unilever and all the others fully understand the importance of business continuity management. They also have the resources and therefore are in a very good position to support, provide capacity building to MSMEs, especially for those that are that belong to their respective value or supply chains. We also recognize that many of these companies, again, like Unilever, are driven by very strong social missions. And we just realize that working with them might be creating an opportunity for them to realize those social missions.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Now, we really truly appreciate the engagement of Unilever in the Academy. I think we've gone a long way, and yet this is just the beginning of going into a more fulfilling mission of giving our share to the social movement, in like bringing into importance, like I mean like in bringing the importance of BCP to more audiences. So I think we could have not worked really well without your help. And of course, now we really appreciate the synergy, the collaboration. So again, thank you, Dom. Okay. Also, with also here, we have Adrian. I actually remember him from batch 3. So he was one of the active participants during the training. So I actually noticed that he has this appreciation of what BCP was. So maybe you can share your experience or gains from it.
Yes. Thank you, Mel. Actually, when Cord Minimart was established in 2002, we thought that we already considered everything that is needed for the business to succeed. We made a feasibility study on the market, considered possible competition, looked at manpower requirement, and other operational details. We even considered recession due to slowdown in economy. But disasters, be it natural or man-made, it's not really a part of the equation. Although we know the location of our store is flood-prone, we have considered it during the construction of the building by raising the floor height. But it was really Typhoon Ondoy that made us realize that there is a threat from natural disaster. We actually have a picture of ours taken from our of the flood. That is our community actually. So that was taken from the second floor of our building during Ondoy. And another typhoon, I'm not particularly sure if it was Habagat or Milenio, that further heightened our concern and made us realize that indeed there was a threat from natural disaster. But the reality of totally wiping out the business was just realized when we saw the news footages from the effects of Typhoon Yolanda in the Visayas. Not only did we see destroyed establishments, but you can see the chaos and the looting after the typhoon. So we were asking ourselves, can we survive that? Or can we just be prepared for that? So good thing Unilever, through their distributor, Peraza, came to us and invited us for a business continuity planning seminar. By the way, we haven't thanked Unilever for that. So thank you for helping small businesses like us. And BCP was at that time at a development stage. I think we were pioneers in the training, and if I'm not mistaken, batch 3.
Yes,
yeah,
you're
we're in the batch 3. So it was very helpful and an eye-opener for us, for small businesses like us, because it makes us more relaxed and more prepared for such disasters. Actually, I made a BCP for Record Minimart and made it in a PowerPoint presentation so I could convey it to our employees. Because according to the discussion in the training, it should be a total team effort, a collective effort of the organization. So we gave them assignments for during calamities. Actually, now I really can't say if we're really ready for a disaster, but definitely we are more prepared than before. I shouldn't say that, unfortunately, we were not able to practice the plan. But rather, I would like to say that we are fortunate that no disaster came after the BCP training. The bottom line is that I think we are ready and we are excited on running up our business continuity plan. But of course, not to the point that we have to pray that disaster should come so we can practice the plan. And I guess everybody here would agree that no amount of money could be paid for a relaxed mind and a good night's sleep, knowing that our business is safe.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. Thank you for that nice sharing. Actually, he is actually a familiar face. I don't know if you recognize him. He's actually our poster boy. So we see him around from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. So like this one kind of targeting that we used during the
ambassador for
yes, an ambassador for BCP training. So thank you for that sharing, and really appreciate your presence here because in so short a notice we were able to invite you. And I was not wrong in identifying you to be part of this panel because I really saw that appreciation. Thank you so much, Arnel. So aside from Arnel's experience and games, I think you will also feature another impact story from Joko Anaya. He's actually a BCP participant and trainer. And another one from Juanita Ang, a shop owner from Cagayan de Oro.
Disaster profile ng region na linahad kanina ng Office of Civil Defense ng Zamboanga. Karamihan sa mga disasters dito ay una flood, typhoons, and yung threat ng giyera kagaya ng Zamboanga siege. Kasali ito sa mga sakuna na pwedeng makaapekto sa businesses. Pinapatigil nito minsan ng ilang araw yung isang business. At sa halimbawa sa giyera, nagkakaroon din ng mga distractions kung paano gawin ng mga businesses ng Zamboanga at generally sa buong Pilipinas na mga strategies, pamamaraan para madali silang makatayo ulit pagkatapos ng isang sakuna. So, bale ang ginawa natin kanina, pinagawa natin sila ng mga iba't ibang aktibidades para malaman kung ano yung mga pangunahing mga sakuna na pwedeng mangyari sa kanila. At makapagplano din sila kung paano paghandaan itong mga ito, mabawasan yung impacts o yung epekto ng sakuna sa kanilang mga businesses para tulungan yung mga businesses sa Pilipinas na maging resilient. Yung tipong yung parang kawayan na kung bagay pagdaan ng bagyo yumuyuko, pero pag kalipas ng bagyo tumatayong bagyo.
Experience yun ako ang kalisod na mo kay nasulod daghan gid ang tubig nasulod dayon nabasa among mga product na mo sa kuan sampol sa mga Unilever, mga bugas, basa gyud na damage gyud among mga produkto di sulod. Mo nga almost cost gyud to mga 20,000 pinang tanang nabaha nga na damage gyud. Importante ma'am kay na maka-prepare na ko sa among natun-an dito sa kuan seminar na mo. Apply na nako unsa akong buhaton. Sample to sa among bugas. Bili na nako din dili na ibutan sa among tindahan dito na sa among bodega na i-transfer ang mga mabasa nga item. Hasta mga product amo na ipababaw na dili na ipaubos. Ano ni apply ko na tawag na ko ng karpentero, nagpagawa na doon, lagyan ng mga eskalon, yung mga eskalon sa mga stante, ano, dito ilagay ang mga item nga product namin, yung mabasa sa ulan. Ready na may ma'am, mayroong bagyo or baha, magulan ng panahon. Mo din yung ikuan, ready na. Budigan naman sa bahay. Kuan na, ready na namo. Dito na namo i-plaster among mga butang mo item na mga product nga madali na mabasa sa tubig.
So as you can see, there's so much lessons learned in DC, but the operative word really is preparedness. Yeah. So this reminds me actually of a quote from Muzi that states like $1 spent on disaster preparedness saves $7 in response to problem. So of course we don't want, of course the last thing that we want to see is our business going down the drain. So, I also hope to share BCP in a nutshell. So what is BCP? Well, it's a practical, it's a proactive planning process to ensure that critical services and goods are delivered. Businesses are up and about immediately after a disaster. So we have here some practical tips on how to do a BCP. So first step, we want to understand your customer. Well, it's basically just knowing your customers and the key staffs and the suppliers. So for the second step, we'd like to determine your disaster risk and scenarios. So we want to evaluate the risk and be able to select one of which is of high priority. And then be able to identify risk which may seriously threaten your business. Step 3, knowing your company's important activities. This time we identify time-critical processes and determine how soon would the total disruption of these activities becomes unacceptable and estimate how long will it take to resolve these problems. Moving to step 4, your company's strategies, so survival strategies. So just know your business continuity planning purpose and be able to create a team. Of course, we need to come up with survival strategies before, like thinking about protection and mitigation, during some emergency response strategies as well, and after continuity and recovery strategies. Of course, it's worthy to note that we should also be financially prepared. Step 5, we need to test these company plans. Maybe we can come up with some sort of a drill or come up with an evacuation plan, at least have an emergency communication plan and an incident command protocol. And the last step, we need to improve your plan. So over the years, we need to see and look back how we are faring. And of course, time and again, I think as the climate change, we can probably look back to our business continuity plans if it is still apt. Okay. So I think think we're now ready for the question and answer portion. I think we have one from, yeah, maybe one question which we can maybe throw to Ed and Dong. Like, how do you plan to replicate or scale the BCP project for a broader audience?
All right, so okay, let me start. So I think in 3 ways. First, definitely it's time to scale up, right? And we've talked about the part of the trade segment that's most prone to the issues of calamities and disasters, which is really the small community retailers. We call sari-sari stores. We do have a program existing now that teaches basic business skills to this sari-sari stores. We call it Kabisig Summit. Kabisig Summit. What is Kabisig Summit? Kabisig Summit teaches them basic business skills related to small retail business. So they talk about, we teach them about merchandising, product assortment. We talk about customer service, how to handle money, basic principles of finance. So something that's really apt for a small business like a sari-sari store. I think to be able to move forward on the BCP, we should add a module on business resiliency. And this would scale up our current reach of from the current 500 stores, at least for the Unilever side, to 100,000 stores. And these are the stores that really needs this type of skills and training. That's first. Second, I think we need now to leverage on digital. So if we can have a BCP program that is easily accessible through their mobile phones, then that will give access and really socialize the idea of basic computing for more sari-sari stores. Of course, we realize that probably not all are still using smartphones, but that's just a matter of time, right? So the speed by which they transfer to a feature phone to a smartphone is quite fast. And then third, we talk about BCP as an end-to-end process. We rightly focused first on the customers because they are really the ones that really gets impacted by calamities. But now we have to really look at end-to-end and look at our suppliers, our distributors, and the entire end-to-end supply chain. So those 3 areas, I think, is how we will move forward on BCP.
Yeah. From the HLA side, I think we all believe that business continuity is for everyone. Even service institutions like government institutions, civil society organizations also need business continuity management as much as MSMEs do. So this is to make sure that all these institutions remain functional and are able to deliver the services that people urgently need, especially in the aftermath of disasters. For the current program, to scale up the business continuity management for MSMEs, we're looking at leveraging resources from local government units to support wide scale out and scaling up within their respective localities. So HLA is committed to support them with training more trainers who can then train more end users in their respective areas. We are also going to try to influence local government units to enact local ordinances that would promote and support business continuity for MSMEs in their respective localities. Include this in their local disaster risk reduction and management plans, and of course allocate some resources for this accordingly. We will also continue to support advocacy for the passage of the bill that I mentioned earlier that will include business continuity management already as part of the law if it becomes a law finally. We're also aware that other academy centers now of HLA are looking at our experience in the Philippines and are keen to replicate the same experience in their respective countries. And of course, we will be very happy from the Philippine Academy Center to support those initiatives in those other centers. In partnership with other institutions, we are doing more customization of existing business continuity training modules to suit the needs of other audiences. I mentioned some earlier, cooperatives, local government units, and civil society organizations. Again, HLA is in a very good position to support training of trainers to speed up the scale out of these new modules for new target audiences. And lastly, I think to make business continuity management learning more accessible, Ed was earlier talking about the use of technology. I think one value that XLA can add is trying to digitize the training modules for different audiences, make them into e-learning formats, and make them accessible to everyone, everywhere, via our e-learning platform, Kaya Connect. I understand that Kaya Connect can play in mobile devices like smartphones, tablets, in areas where there is internet connection, of course. But I think, again, one good thing about Kaya Connect is that there is a downloadable offline player that people coming from areas where there's no internet connection can still make use of. So I think that's
really important because I think the resilience is all about awareness,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Awareness, right? So I think consistent with step 6, where you said you have to improve the plan.
Right.
That's why we're pushing for a digitization of this, socialization of the program. Because that's the only way that you can actually continue on improving the plan, really teaching, in our case, our customers, how to do business continuity planning on a continuous basis.
I think just to quickly add that maybe for the target audience for the basic program of Unilever, we can probably continue working together to develop more bite-sized, more simple, more customized modules that will be more appropriate to that segment of the audience that Unilever is targeting.
And it's really something that we're really looking forward to working with you again.
I think this time we have to go to them.
Right.
Because this type of stores cannot close for a day. They
Correct.
cannot go to a training program and spend one day. They have to be in the store nearest as possible. That's why I like the idea of a BCP, the visit program, because you're actually doing the program in the premises of the the community itself.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, from a 2-day workshop, we're down to a 2-hour workshop.
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge, but I think we really have to come up with something really basic and simple for them really. Oh, here's another question. Yeah, I think this is actually after ideal, considering your experience doing the BCP training. Is it costly to do a business continuity plan?
Actually, that's a good question. As Dong said earlier, the MSMEs are the most vulnerable because of the limited resources we have and the limited financing we have. But the good thing about planning is you can tailor fit it to what you need, or for cost, you can tailor fit it according to what you can afford. But for the training itself, for the BCP training, with the help of big companies like Unilever, and as you mentioned, we're going digital, and it would come to us, then I think the training itself is not a problem anymore. So it's just how you make the plan exactly for what you can afford or what you need.
Yeah. And I think when we also equate it with in terms of savings that you will be having, rather if you don't have a PCP, I think that will be more costly not having one. Maybe I think you'll be able just to answer this last question.
So should we want to be involved with Unilever within disaster preparedness, in which function should we look? Part of their CSR strategy is part of the corporate communication plan. So when I started with this whole concept of the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, right? So as a general direction, yes, the whole DCP is indeed part of and integral to Unilever strategy. Now, depend on how to get access to the training outside of the digital, because that gives access to everybody anywhere, anytime. We are focusing on our small retailers, the sari stores, and therefore our sales teams are actually there. So we have, we are well distributed across the country. We have distributors from Luzon to Mindanao, and the access is through our distributor partners. So that's the easy way to get in. Of course, the easiest way is the digital, which we're all looking forward to.
Yeah. Okay. Do we still have time to answer this question? Okay. Someone's actually joining from Cebu. Says it's a very helpful webinar, and she's wondering how LGUs or the dream offices, dream councils integrate this into plan. Any progress in this regard? Thanks. Yeah, Doc?
Yeah. We have made initial discussions with the provincial government of Cebu, and there has been an express commitment from their side. And in fact, I think they really included in the discussion when they did their local disaster risk reduction planning for this year to incorporate business continuity management. Anyway, part of the partnership with the provincial government of Cebu is to train more trainers on business continuity within the province, and most probably most of those 50 will come from the different municipalities and cities within the province. So those trainers will be responsible for scaling out BCP within their respective constituencies.
1 minute. Okay. Maybe another last question before we wrap up. Does Unilever support the micro, small, medium enterprises in the BCP process in other countries too? Or is it only limited to the Philippines?
Right. So first of all, we're lucky enough to be the pilot country on this, working together with HLA. And the intent is really for us to test and learn. And we are closely, actually all the countries, at least in Southeast Asia, where we have a similar trade profile, is already looking at how we're doing it here. They are closely looking at the Kamising Summit, which is a training program for the small retailers. And since we are incorporating this, all of these countries in South Asia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, all of them would have their own version of Kamising Summit. It's like a retailer program for their small mom and pops. So I think the answer there is we look forward to it, because it's the fact that it's a pilot. It doesn't end there. The intent is really for us to have a broader audience and have a bigger reach of this program.
Right. Okay. So much as we would want to answer more questions, we're so sorry about that we don't have much time. But we don't want to miss this opportunity to tell you that you can continue your learning. We can email you a how-to guide. We also have a BCM online course available now at our Kaya digital platform. So please feel free to navigate and look into it. So again, we want to take this opportunity to thank the panelists. Thank you, Ed, Lavin, Dom, and of course, Arnel, and of course the technical staff as well. So thank you, and thank you for joining for our webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.